Okay.
Huzzah! Episode
Huzzah.
5.
Today we are
Okay.
voices in the void.
Mm. Are we
Ooh.
real or not? Or is this a simulation? Ooh, CGI. We've gone AI. Dun dun dun.
Da da
Yes.
dong. This is in preparation for your book that has ghosts. We will be ghostly voices
Yes.
today.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Spooky. Was it just really silly? Well, it's
And
because
talking
it's been
about
a good
spooky and
quarter.
silly, this is
Yes.
what we were going to
Look.
talk about. Spooky and
Yeah.
silly is exactly what children's books do.
Mm.
You were telling me about that. I Let's
Yeah.
backtrack for our listeners. I had asked
Mm.
you, why don't you write a children's book for your kids? And you told
Yes.
me, that's hard.
Yes, it is. It's like this kind of things that are deceptively easy until you try to do it. And I know because well, no, I don't know, but I imagine so because I've read so many children's books, and there's some that just completely land, and you're like, this is a great book, and I don't mind reading it 100 times, which is just as well, because that's pretty much what you have to do with the favorites. And then the others that just don't quite work, they have a few too many words, you end up skipping words and they just don't have the same, I don't know, timeless quality. Like at the moment, my kids are like the favorites are there's quite a lot of Quentin Blake ones. We're just reading one called Zagazoo, which is hilarious. It's on two different levels, one for kids, one for grown-ups. There's all the Mog books and the Tiger Who Came for Tea, which is wonderful magical realism. Dr. Seuss, of course. And there's something about them that captures little kids' imaginations. And like as an adult, you can appreciate it as well. So I know when my brother's kids were littler, it was a point of honor for him to be able to read the whole of Fox and Socks at top speed, which is actually quite difficult. It is a real tongue twister. And
And
then, yeah.
how important would you say I mean, kids' books are not just about the words, they're also about the visuals, especially when
So
they start
important.
reading it themselves.
Mm.
Are your kids at that point where if you read them at night, they have to be looking at the book? Or just with the words is enough because they've looked at the pictures enough times that they know exactly what's going on each page?
Yeah, it really depends how tired they are. Like if they can get in bed, if they're tired, they'll lie and listen. But I think they do like the pictures. And the really funny thing is when one of them gets hold of a book by themselves and pages through it and tells themselves the story with lots of extra actions and stuff. Like there's a huge monster or a big wave, and just from the pictures. And sometimes they've, like Josh told me green eggs and ham the other day. And from the pictures, he actually got a fair bit of the story. Like he was like, not with fox, not in box, not in house, not with mouse, not in car, not in dark. And he went on. And yeah, so it's kind of a bit of both. Like another friend of mine, when she was a kid, her mum was convinced she could read. And when she went to school, the teacher had to call her mum in and like do a thing where she showed her that actually no, her daughter couldn't read. She just memorized every book in the house. So there is that too. They're not definitely not at that stage, but there's a certain amount. I think there's definitely books that I could do off by heart because I've just read them so many times.
And what kinds of stories do you see like children? I mean, your kids are 2.5,
Mm. Yeah.
more or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
kinds of like you probably started with books that were just like animals at the farm. I mean, I at least I remember my nephews and nieces first books were just a cow and a calf. Moo.
Yeah.
Big elephant, little elephant, where they're basically learning nouns, verbs, adjectives, and associating them with pictures. Uh,
pretty
At
much.
what
Um,
point did you could you graduate to they can follow an actual narrative, um, or at least not that they understand the whole of it, but they actually want more than just the names of things.
so it was around two, like between two and two and a half. Their language has just shot up like whoa, like jeepers. They're just starting to really start to put together words and sentences and understand stuff to the point that you have to be quite careful. Because as an adult, you often talk about stuff that you expect will go straight over their heads. And then they'll seize onto something like you mentioned going to the pools tomorrow. And then they're like, no, now is the only time. We're going to the pools now. And you're like, oh, we're at the stage where I'm going to have to spell like certain keywords that are really important. I'm going to have to spell those out because
The
they are,
POOL.
yeah, they're putting things together um, pretty well, I think, kind of scarily well. Like, have to be a bit careful. But yeah, it was around that age, two to two and a half. And I mean, I think to the point on the pictures as well, what good authors and illustrators do, and some of the best books are author illustrator, like um The Tiger Who Came to Tea, a lot of the Quentin Blake books, Dr. Seuss, Where the Wild Things Are. So author and the illustrator are the same person. But the pictures do an extra job to the words. And Judith Kerr does this quite a bit where the words will give you one half of the picture, and then the picture will supply the other half. And often the picture will almost contradict the other half. Like it'll be something like, um, let me think of an example. Like Mog's Christmas. She sees a Christmas tree coming towards her, and Mog is a cat. She freaks out and runs up the house, and the Christmas tree starts yelling for her to come down. And then the picture you can see that the Christmas tree is being carried by Mr. Thomas and his kids are yelling at Mog to come down, but she can't see that. So it's like I think good illustrators and children's book authors will play games with the interplay between the picture and the text so that each one is more than the sum of its parts.
That's very interesting. Um it makes me think how what you were saying, of course, I don't have 2 year olds around me right now, so I'm not as immersed
You
in
would know if
children's
you
books
did.
at the at the moment. But I'm thinking when we carry that to adult stories, both um, we kind of have lost the art of illustration and adult books. Like, of course, they are a lot more expensive. You're probably get an illustrated, edition of something when you're buying the hardback
Hmm.
collector's edition or something. But it reminds me, I mean, Lord of the Rings had these amazing illustrations that then got put almost verbatim. I mean, that's not the word, but into the movies because
Yeah,
they were
which made
so
the movie so
evocative.
much better. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was a genius move on Peter Jackson's part. Um, I've watched the making of, and there was this great scene where they flew over to get Alan Howe and Alan Lee and John Howe on board because they were two of the premier illustrators. And I think one of them was saying, they gave me this very earnest pitch, and I was just waiting for them to finish so I could say yes. So. Yeah, no, and it's part of the world building. And if I think about, say, C.S. Lewis, and it could be partly because when a book becomes a classic, then you know it's going to really sell and then it's worth someone, the publisher, paying for art. But as a kid reading, say, the Narnia books, the illustrations were a big important part of it. And for other books like Winnie the Pooh and Paddington, they are like a big part of why the books were so successful. And nowadays, like if I think the Harry Potter books, they came out, there's probably an illustrated version now, but the original one wasn't. And I'm kind of curious about say when the Narnia books were first published, were they illustrated? Was that just kind of a standard thing for a children's book back then? Like, I guess you call it middle grade fiction now, sort of 9 to 12-year-olds ish. If a book came out back then, was it just expected that it would have illustrations because that's important for it as a reading experience? Because I definitely don't see that much nowadays. Like
No,
the first Harry
it's
Potter book
it's
came
very
out was
strange to
yeah.
get, as you say, middle grade or young YA. It's kind of funny that we call it young YA and adult
Yeah,
YA right now because
young
it's like we're
boy.
repeating the term, like young
Yeah,
adult or older young adult. I'm
YA.
not sure.
Yeah.
YYA. Um, but just thinking, even Lewis Carroll, he did. I'm pretty sure he made drawings for Alice in Wonderland himself.
Hmm.
Um, uh, they, I should check on that just not to throw out. But I'm pretty sure some of the images that go around with not the Disney version, but the original, I think they were done by Lewis Carroll himself. And
Hmm. Tolkien did illustrations too. He illustrated Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Quite lovely. I mean, they weren't like amazing like say Alan Lee or John Howe, but they were lovely. They were quite that was part of his process. He liked to illustrate his books. So when he described a scene, it was because he really had the scene in his mind because he drawn it somewhere as well. Along with, writing, creating several languages and a whole mythology of every race, was the original
yes,
world book.
we will not hold modern writers up to that standard, or none of us will ever write another word. But
Ever.
ever. But it is a pity that, I mean, even illumination of manuscripts that used to be a huge thing in the Middle Ages, and I mean it completely
Mm.
died out once the printing press came around because
Mm.
that was time consuming. But you were saying how the pictures around the text can tell a different story. You can even sometimes just not read the text and just look at the pictures and have your own experience of what's going on. I think it's kind of sad that we've lost that,
Mm.
um, to an extent. But anyway, my
Yeah.
other
No, that's
question,
interesting. Yeah, because I mean,
um,
novels are they've been making a comeback since, well, manga is huge now. Um,
yeah,
and it's a whole other way of telling a story as well, which has its own special things. But anyway, what was your question?
my question was, what kinds of stories you were saying, of course, children's stories have to be like the most compressed form of flash fiction.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so you really have to land the beats, the turns, the twists in few words that are evocative enough and um, that will land with a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
Which have you realized what makes the ones that you said become classics, or that your children just want read again and again? What is it? Is it because they have wordplay? Is it because they have action? What through lines do you find work? Because we're
Mm.
all kids at heart.
Yeah.
So I'm
Mm.
pretty sure that things that are work for a two for 2.5-year-old twins in a more, dressed up version is actually what's working for the rest of us.
Yeah. So, part of it is that something really has to happen. I mean, and this comes back to, say, scene craft. You've written a scene that has legs if something really happens. Things change. Like if you think of the progression in The Cat in the Hat, like the cat comes and then just chaos erupts in this house, which was a very dull day. There's nothing to do. They're just sitting looking out the window. The cat in the hat arrives, and then next minute there's thing one and thing two running down the corridor with kites, like just creating complete chaos of the house. So the thing about kids is that kids of this age is that they like the whole magical realism, I think, for them, we talk about it like it's this thing. For them, it just is. Like reality is magical. So if something happens like the cat in the hat turns up or a tiger comes for tea or Max sails away across the world to where the wild things are, for them they're still figuring out the world. They're like, well, sure, I don't see why that could happen. So I think you can really push the boundaries. It's interesting. Like, so firstly, things need to happen. Um, and then it's a economy. Like you're telling the story with just a few characters. You don't have a giant cast of characters. And hmm, that is a difficult thing because like you can put a lot of nuance into a story, even if it's using very few words. And but it's the kind of the dichotomy of having a lot of nuance and doing that with very few words. Like in there's a story that a friend gave to me, which is amazingly dark. It's for kids. It's called Not Now, Bernard. And in it, this little boy, Bernard, is going to his mum and he's like, can you do this? And he's like, not now, Bernard. He goes to his dad and he's like, hey, dad. And the dad is like, not now, Bernard. Then he goes to his mum and he's like, there's a monster outside that's going to eat me. And she's like, not now, Bernard. And then Bernard goes outside and the monster eats him. And the monster comes inside and roars at his mother. And the mother's like, not now, Bernard. And then he goes and bites the father. And the father's like, not now, Bernard. And then he has Bernard's dinner and watches TV, goes upstairs to bed. And the mother comes up with his milk and he's like, good night, Bernard. And the monster is like, I'm not Bernard, I'm a monster. And she's like, not now, Bernard. And it's like, it's so dark. And you don't know if it's a literal monster that's eaten him and his parents haven't noticed, or he's just in a monster mood. And it's just left completely open, which is wonderful and dark because you're like, how are these parents not noticing? And my kids got so into it. It was really quite fascinating how into it they were with the monster eating Bernard and doing all the monster sounds and they're like, no, it's not Bernard, it's a monster. And they didn't seem at all worried about just how dark it was. They were like, I think at this age you can go pretty dark if you think of Grimm's fairy tales. They're super dark because kids just want to know how the world works. If they're monsters, they want to know where they are and what they do and how that all works. So yeah, I haven't really answered your question because it's a really difficult question, but those are some of the
I,
things I've been thinking about.
uh, I'm sure there's no one answer, or at least there probably is if we went down a rabbit hole of searching out, people who write for children, they probably know which are the key rules. But the things that you're saying make a lot of sense, and they reminded me of two things. One is Calvin and Hobbes. Your Not
Mm.
Now, Bernard is so Calvin and Hobbes. It's uh where it's is Hobbes just a stuffed tiger, or
Mm.
is he really real? I mean, is he doing stuff with Calvin? That's always left open, and I think
Yeah.
that's what makes that strip just so amazing. Um,
Mm.
that and it ties into this other thing. It's, as you say, kids are discovering the world, so everything's valid to an
Mm.
extent.
Yeah.
Nothing has an inherent value judgment on it. Um, a monster can eat you, and I mean that's fine as long
That's what
uh
happened.
yeah, that's what happened. And as you say, it's really dark. But I think it's us adults kind of reading it as dark. Um,
Mm.
because we're adding those layers of these parents are ignoring the child, and not we're adding a whole other layer of readings into it, which is probably um, maybe part of what the author wanted. I mean, it's going to be
Mm.
parents reading
Yeah.
this to the children, and we're getting one message. The kids are getting a completely different one.
Yeah.
Um,
No, no,
which I think
totally.
is 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 quite smart. But again, returning to what drew me to that, it's things have to happen for sure,
Mm.
and you don't. It kind of took me to you don't need all that much world building if you establish that things are this way and just run with it. I think sometimes as uh, adults, when we're writing, we feel like we have to explain everything in the story, um, and justify and kind of give, all the context around so that nobody will poke holes into our plot. Um, and and kids are so much more open in that sense.
Mm.
You say it's this way, okay, it's that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
It's
what?
fine.
And then what happened? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, as you say, the magical realism authors for adults. That's what makes sometimes their writing so magical, that they will not explain what, the fact that, yes, this person, you know, I mean, the first, you could say even that Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis is kind of magical realism. Did he transform into a a bug, or is this a whole, allegory for something else? Um, I'm sure a kid reads that and he's like, yeah, he's a bug. I mean, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember
What?
finding out that Aslan was this big Christian message, and as a kid, I totally missed that. And I remember when I found out in my teens, I was a bit miffed because I was like, that giant talking lion is really cool. Why would you, you know? And I get C.S. Lewis was a Christian. He was firstly an atheist and then became a Christian. So I think he had a lot to say about it. But as a kid, I was perfectly happy with the talking lion. I didn't need anything more than that. It's like, okay, this lion is talking. Right, what's next? And
Yes.
yeah, and I think that is something like if you do write magical realism, you should just go with it. And yeah, less explanation can be a good thing. I mean, Star Wars, when George Lucas and the prequels tried to explain the Force, he killed it. He just should not
Yes.
have tried to explain. It's like, why? Why, George Lucas? We don't need an explanation. It's the Force, and you feel it. That's all that needs to be said. So yeah,
Yeah, I think Terry Pratchett got it right. Just say because quantum.
yeah, because of quantum. Yeah, absolutely. And why the Reaper? Because it's Discworld, obviously. It's these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, so anyway, that's fascinating. I actually you made me want to go back and read children's stories. I need to I need
Mm.
to brush up on my kids' literature. Um, it's it's another thing. I've been reading not kids literature, definitely not kids literature. I've been reading a lot of Shirley Jackson this past week, like several of her short stories.
Ooh.
And um she is not I mean, it's not magical realism. She does have one story I kind of has a kid who thinks magical realism. It's called The Witch. It's an interesting little one. Um, but one thing she does, which I think um, authors for kids kind of will do, is she will not explain a lot of things. I mean, that's part of her like signature move, but she'll leave things very open because she's forcing the reader to fill that space. Her stories are always very disturbing to an extent where you uh, because she wants to disturb you, but not in the gratuitous gore or gratuitous, be uh, you know, bend the trope just to bend it. She just wants to shake you into taking a position because she's not going to do it in the story. And I think that's fascinating. And it's something she's kind of forcing adults to do what children do naturally, which is you just filling the blanks with yourself and your expectations, which I think is fascinating.
The way I've heard it described, you with short storytelling, is you take the reader by the hand and you lead them off into the dark woods, and you're like, "It's okay, I've got you," and then you get to the middle of it and you just let go of their hand and leave them there. And that's definitely Shirley Jackson. I've had my first experience with her reading The Lottery, which was a lovely tale about families and society and everything like that. And oh my God, yeah, she really does just leave you in the middle of the awfulness in that story anyway.
Yeah,
And
she takes you to the
yeah,
cliff and then pushes you, actually, I would say.
yeah,
She
exactly.
takes you
Yeah,
to
it's just
the
like
edge
you
and
find your
then
way down.
shoves you and then runs the other way. And you're
Yeah,
left
yeah.
with having to, okay, what do I do with this? Um, yes, it's definitely one of her signature moves across the board. You, there are always stories which you read again and again, and you keep finding in them that there's not a sentence and a word that is not doing its job. She is so economical um, that once you reread her and reread her, the same story, you realize she was giving you all the information and you
Hmm.
never put it together until you reach the end, which makes her a great mystery writer,
Yeah.
because she
Huh.
will literally plant all the evidence in your face, like say it again and again and again, and then plays with misdirection, either through what she makes you pay attention to or just the voice she's using, the narrator's voice, that you just don't realize. You are so hoodwinked until you reach that last line, or sometimes in the middle, and you're like, oh whoa, wait, this was not the story I was reading. Like, what happened? Like, was the rug pulled from under me? And it's like, no, she actually gave you everything to realize, and you just didn't realize what was going on. It's very she is one of those authors that, like a children's book, you the good ones you can reread again and again and still find layers, which I think,
Hmm.
as you say, why do you not get, of course, after time 1348, I'm sure you don't want to read The Cat in the Hat again, at least not for, all 365 days in the year, but it's still a book that one returns to and enjoys again and
Yeah,
again. And I think
totally.
it's because everything in that, the images, the words, the rhyme, the cadence, everything is doing a job. There's no extra.
Yeah, and he doesn't pass judgment. That's the thing. He doesn't the cat in the hat isn't bad specifically or good. It's just I don't know. It's like you could analyze it all, but when you the experience of reading it, you're just seeing what happens. Like the fish is like they're going, no, 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 you should not be here while your mother is out. But the kids are just kind of fascinated, and then they need to take action because everything is absolutely going to chaos. But yeah, I think that's part of it. It's thank goodness Shirley Jackson doesn't write children's books because they would be terrifying. They're probably like adults would be like, oh no, not that one. But yeah, no, it is partly that, you lay the pieces out and then you let the reader draw their own conclusions. And yeah, a good story you can read a dozen times and draw slightly different conclusions every time, or just slightly different angles, or see new things in it.
Yeah. Now that you
Yeah.
say it, that's actually the thing that Shirley Jackson doesn't do. She doesn't pass judgment in her stories.
Mm.
You can never say if she approves or doesn't approve of what's going on, if she sympathizes or doesn't sympathize. Um, I mean, I'm sure Shirley Jackson, the author, had her thought, had her value judgment on the things she was writing, which is why she wrote what she wrote. But her narrator just says things kind of like a children's story. It's like, these are the facts. Like in the
Mm.
lottery, this is what happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened in Stoning. And
Yeah. Yeah.
and you read
Yeah.
that, and you're like, wait, like
Well,
what?
I was pretty sure I knew I put it together from the start. I saw there's like people gathering in a town square, a pile of stones, a lottery. I'm like, oh, this is not good. But then she kind of, with all the laughing and the joking and the people, like all the different families, she kind of was like, look over here. Maybe it isn't that. But then she kept coming back to how everyone was nervous, and I'm like, oh no, oh gee. And it just got worse and worse and worse the more you kind of saw what was going on, and the people themselves became more clear to you. Oh man, it was just so dark. But the thing is, it was disturbing, and it's not anything that hasn't happened in the history of the human race. You know, this is not new. This is maybe not with a lottery, but there have been similar lotteries of that kind in the past as well. So yeah, she's drawing from the shared human experience, um, and you know, just laying it out, and you're like, oh gosh, that's
Yeah,
dark.
yeah. She
But
puts
yeah,
up a mirror, um,
yeah,
and that's why I always think that the protagonist in Shirley Jackson's story is the reader. In at
mm,
least most of the ones I've read, because the one that has to in the end make a decision as to what the story means and where they what they're going to make of it and what they would have done different is the reader um and not any of the characters, which is
mm,
makes it a very, very interesting um experience. um I
yeah.
was just thinking I could like, yes, thank God she didn't write children's tales, but I could totally see her writing something like The Lottery for Children, and you not realizing that you're
Oh.
reading that, and children just going like, "Yay, stones!" at the end, and you're like,
I
"No."
mean, that was the thing back in the day. Like, if you go to London and there's well, it's not there anymore, but the hanging tree, and it was considered quite normal to bring the whole family along on a Saturday or something to see the hangings or the beheadings. You know, it's fun for
Yeah,
everyone. You just bring your kids along, and that that was considered as the normal. You know, people nowadays might go for a Sunday drive and then they'll go for I don't know if they did it on Sunday, but maybe a Saturday hanging. And yeah, I was like, yay, there we go. Right, kids, have some popcorn. Right, who's gonna get hanged today? Hooray! Um, so yeah, that wasn't, a few hundred years ago. It wasn't that long ago. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Oh.
Ooh. So on that note, we started on the
On that
hoo-hoo,
note,
and we're
yeah.
gonna leave on that. I'd say,
Right.
if you want to sleep tonight, definitely read a children's story. If not, grab Shirley Jackson. You'll be disturbed
Yeah.
enough uh, with what you see. So pick
Allah.
your own adventure.
Mm. Mhm.
Yay.
See you. Goodbye to
Yes.
the
See
boy.
you. Goodbye to the void. And see you all next week.
How's that?